Yo, what's up, everybody? We're here to talk about Fairy Tale, Volume 34, which picks up mid games as we are spending a lot of time here. All right. So, actually, where we left off is Natsu is attacking Asshole Guild Sabretooth. So, he's yelling at the guy was yelling back, and then the old man. What's his name? Who's in charge of this joint? He sends some of his goons at him, and Natsu just beats the crap out of him. This guy's name is Dorvengal or whatever. He's some sort of ninja. And then Sting wants to go fight, but the master is like, no. So the Natsu starts fighting the master, and he's about to beat the master. No joke. Like, he's so powerful. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And then Minerva, who is the daughter of the master and a premier mage, she stops the situation. And then Natsu isn't about, she casts like some shield thing to protect her father from being utterly destroyed. And then she demonstrates that she's captured Happy. And if Natsu wants Happy, he better get the F out. And so he picks up Happy, and Happy apologizes, but he's like, whatever. And so he starts walking out of there. And then right as he's leaving, he's like, if you're a guild, treat your comrades right. That's all I wanted to say. And then he nopes out of there. And then Rogue is like very concerned about the whole thing. And Sting wants to fight Natsu so bad he can like taste in his mouth. Meanwhile, the next day, our friend, lady who's also, I can't remember anybody's names, lady who's also a summoner mage, as she is walking out of there and she hears rumors of somebody attacking Sabretooth and all that, and she thinks about Natsu and is very happy. So the games continue. We got that douchebag Lahar, I think is his name, from the Magic Council, and then he brought Mast, whose actual name is something. I don't remember what his name is. Hold on, it may say that. Doran. So Doran Balt. So Doran Balt came along as well, and he's got a new look. And we see that there's going to be new activity. And so Urza goes, Kana goes, Miliana, the cat lady, goes, Obra, who is like the sketchy dude who knocked Wendy out, Habiki, who's one of the beautiful men, this Olga Nanana guy from Sabretooth, Jura, our friend Jura from Lamia Scale, and then some nobody from Quattro. Puppy goes. And who goes from Ravenclaw or whatever it's called? Raven. Oh, that was Obra. Okay. So the deal here, and we get like a whole chapter about this, is like just describing this situation. And it's like a castle. It's got 100 monsters. There's like 50 D class, 30 C class, 15 B class, 4 A class, 1 S class. And each person's going to take a turn and be like, I want to fight this many monsters. And they're going to get a random assortment of like D through S. And then they have to fight them. And then the S class might even be like too powerful for like a single wizard saint to fight on their own. So that's like the level we're talking about here. So they're going to fight that many, and the next person's going to go, the next person's go, the next person's go. So they all draw lots to see who gets to go first. And Urza draws the number one slot, and she's like, it's already over. I will take on all 100 monsters by myself. And everyone's like, what? And then Levy, who's writing about this day, right? She's been writing about this whole situation, is like, what does she say? The third day of the Grandmaster Games, pandemonium. I don't think I've ever forget what happened that day. and and it's just like Urza's beating the shit out of all these monsters, and everyone's just like, holy cow, like what? And she kills all 100 of them, and then she stands up, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is the power of Fairy Tale. This is ridiculous. And she's all bloody and cut up and stuff, and then her whole team runs out, and they all like hug it out, and everyone's like, whoa. And then the pumpkin guy who's like running the whole thing is like, well, what do we do now? All right, we got this thing. It's called the Magic Power Finder. We got it from the Grand Council Wizard. So you zap it, and it tells you how much magic power you have. And so we're going to keep going in order. So then Millennia, the cat lady, she gets like a 365. And it's like, oh, Lahar is like, oh, that's very impressive. Like even one of our top Rune Knight leaders would get around that score. And then the Quattro Cerberus guy gets like 1/3 of that score. And then the guy they sent from like Habiki goes and he gets like a 95 because his magic power is garbage. And then Obra goes and his magic power is 4. And then there's like some commentary from Raventel that's like, oh, we don't want to show him our true power, right? And so Olga goes and he gets like 3,825. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like 10 times the power of whatever. And then Jura goes out there and he just like prays and does like 8,500. It's like, oh, that's incredible. What's Kana going to do? And she's like toasted, like she's so drunk. And then she tosses off her jacket to reveal her massive tits, but also that she's got Fairy Light. I think that's what it's called. And then her and Makarov and the first master golly, what's her name? It starts with an M as well. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, they talk about how Kana's like so powerful. And she's got all this like deep-seated magic because she's the daughter of Gildart and all that kind of stuff. And so she goes up and she casts fairy glitter, not fairy light, fairy glitter, and just blasts the shit, breaks the machine and gets maxes out the score. And everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, like what in the world?" You saw two females from, or two ladies, the ladies of Fairy Tale, just absolutely decimate the competition, like beyond repair. And then the pumpkin guy's like, "Oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do about this?" And everyone's like cheering and stuff. And then Raven Tail gets like the setup for like the battle next, and they're like all very excited because they're finally going to do the thing they like set up to do here. And so we get some like quick shots of people fighting that are inconsequential from like other guilds, blah blah blah. No one cares about any of that stuff. The guy from Blue Pegasus gets beat up pretty good, and so Ichia is like, "Don't worry, we still have our secret weapon," and it's this person in like a bunny costume, and so everyone's like, "What the heck is this bunny costume?" So then Laxus goes out to fight Alexi, who's the guy, the representative from Raventail, and and then there's like all this concern about Raventail cheating, like what they did with Lucy, and so there's all this prep to like watch them and make sure they're not going to do anything sketchy and whatnot, and there's everyone's still kind of concerned, and so Alexis is standing there with this Alexi guy, and then all of a sudden Alexi's just beating the crap out of Alexis, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Alexis is getting the crap beat out of him," and it goes on for a couple pages before we just see like Laxus standing there watching himself get beat up by Alexi while Alexi is like standing there as well, and he's like, "What is this?" He's like, "It's an illusion," and it's like, "I see that, but this is stupid. Why are you doing this?" And then the rest of Raventail shows up, and he's like, "Oh, so we're gonna fight? All of you gonna fight me? That sounds good. Let's do it." And then, like, and then he takes off his helmet, and it's dun dun dun. It's, I think Ivan is his name. It's Makarov's son, who is the father of Laxus, and what he wants to do is he wants to get information about the Lumen History, which we don't have much information about that either. We do have in a previous episode before Gildart took off and after they came back from like the 7-year disappearance, that Makarov took him and showed him and said, "Hey, as an ex-guild master, I wanted you to show this thing because this is like the secret of like the guild masters." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy," right? So, but we don't know anything. Laxus doesn't know anything. He's like, "I don't know anything about that crap. What are you talking about, old man?" And he's like, "All right, let's fight all of you at one time." And they're like, "Oh, we're gonna teach you a valuable lesson because Raventail was specifically set up like for 7 years." Ivan like set up this guild specifically to be able to defeat Fairy Tale, and Laxus is like unconcerned. And so we get some like more back talk and stuff before the shonen battle begins about because Makarov knew this whole time, and they realized that Gajil was like a double crosser the whole time, and so Makarov was gathering information, and Laxus at some point like in a flashback was like, "Why didn't we do anything about that?" He's like, "Well, as long as he doesn't hurt our guild, I'm not worried about it." And Laxus says, "You know, your father, like, oh, you know, the old man still believes in you and believes you can do good." And then Ivan's like, "Ah," and he like blasts Lexus, and Lexus just like throws it off, and then he just the guy who hurt Wendy is about to like do like an elimination magic, but Lexus like like insta bursts him and knocks him out, and then he turns and fights the red haired chick and the fat guy that fought Great, yeah. And let's see, blast them. The snake guy just decimates instantaneously. And finally, the guy's like, "I'm your father. What are you doing? This is my lead squad. Something. It's like my family's Fairy Tale." And then he's like, I had to crush the enemies of Fairy Tale. And he blasts the crap out of his father, who flies back against the back wall, and like the illusion's like gone. And everyone's like, what's going on here? And we see Laxus standing there, and with the whole Raventail just like utterly destroyed. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, like Fairy Tale, like what is happening?" And so he wins, obviously. And then Raventail gets completely removed from the competition because they cheated, obviously. And then as Laxus is walking off, Ivan's like, "Lumen Historia is the darkness of Fairy Tale. If you only knew the truth, you wouldn't be so confident about their whole thing." And so the guards are all picking them up to like take them to jail and get them out of there. Lucy feels bad for the redhead lady. She like names her at some point. The flyer girl. And then we see that little monster that hangs out with Obra. He like darts out of there like tee-hee-heeing. And then we find out the next, and I think the last battle is the cutest battle of all. It's Wendy versus Sharia. And then they both like stumble out into the field of battle and trip and fall. And everyone's like, "Oh, they're so adorable." And it's true. They're both like little lolly queens. And so everyone's like loving it. And it's super great. And everyone's having a good time before that starts. Though we get Mistigan and Ulter and Maridi, and they all sense Zaref's magic, and Mistigan's like, "Stay where you are. I'm going to go check it out." And he runs back to the stadium because he wasn't there, and that's why Kana was there taking over the spot for Mistigan for Team B. So the battle of cuteness picks up or starts up. The girls face off. Everyone's super excited, talking about how cute they are and everything that's going on. And they both use magic, and they both use wind magic. What? The exact same type of magic. But the difference is, while Wendy is a dragon slayer, what's her name? Sharia is actually a god slayer. Oh no! A god slayer magic's slightly better, as we've learned in previous episodes or issues. And so they go back and forth and blast and blast and blast and suck wind up and show an anime battle, and Wendy like knocks her back, and Sharia hits Wendy with all she's got, and finally Wendy like seems to knock Sharia onto the ground and to totally defeat her. But then Sharia gets back up like nothing's wrong, and we find out that the God Slayer magic, not only can you heal others, but you can heal yourself too. While Dragon Slayer magic, she cannot. And then Wendy's used like all her magic, and she's completely tapped out and all that stuff. And meanwhile, Dude Meister is looking over at Mystagon, Dorton Blast, something like. Anyway, seeing him wander around, and then Mystagon gets like the feeling of Zeref's magic coming from Sharia, maybe, and so he's super concerned that she's going to be in danger. Anyway, there's a lot of back and forth with that, and with Mystagon realizing that that guy's watching him. And then back to Sharia and Wendy, and they're going back and forth and casting all sorts of wind magic. And Wendy at some point heals Sharia from her like stamina loss from all her magic to like be able to get Sharia to miss her attack. And then she goes up and just like slaps her, and then they like jump kick each other and stuff. And they're like punching each other, and they're like melee fighting each other. And finally, after a lot of like fight, the match just ends, and it's a tie because it's time up, and everyone's like, wow, that was incredible. And then Wendy and Sharia have these like really cute looks, and they like high five each other, and they decide that they're going to be best friends forever. And Sharia like heals Wendy up, and the Mystigan's like, wait a second, that's not Zeref. This Zeref magic must be coming from somewhere else. So then he starts wandering off, and he's wandering through a crowd, and he's tracking somebody where he senses the magic, and he starts to hurry up. But then Doranbolt shows up, and then he's followed by Lahara, who they're like, oh, this guy's not who he says he is. There's something wrong. And then we see like Urza looking off in the distance, being like, wait a second, what's going on? So back with Mystigan and Doranbolt. So Doranbolt uses something, his illusion magic or whatever he uses, to knock off Jalil's hat, revealing to everyone that he's Jalal and not actually Mystigan. And then old man, God, what's this old man's name? Old man, Yajima-san, the guy who was in the Wizards Council, and now he's here helping with the magic circle stuff. He's like, oh, hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Jalil from Edelos, the other island, or the other world. You heard about him, right? It must be unfortunate to have the same face as this wanted criminal. And then the crazy lady, Kagura, the samurai chick, she sees Jalil, and she freaks out. She looks like she's going to vomit. And then the cat lady, Millennia, sees her, and they're all freaking out. Like the whole mermaid tail is like super upset, and they like wander off. And, you know, Millennia is super mad at Urchan and all that stuff. And Doranbolt and Lahara like apologize to Mystigan for mistaking him for the wrong one. And Mystigan's like, hey, thanks for the help. And he's like, I don't want to cause Makarov any more problems. And as Mystigan wanders off, Lahara's like, that is the real Jalil. That's not the one from the other planet. And Doranbolt's like, why'd you let him go? And he's like, for respect for Yajima-san and what he was doing, and like we didn't want to like tarnish his name. So then Jalil wanders off to try to track down the Zeref magic, but now it's gone. And he's pretty butthurt about that. Meanwhile, Makarov and Laxus are having a talk about the Lumen History. And Makarov feels like he can't talk about it, and that makes Laxus kind of suspect. But then the first master, God, what was her name? Anyway, she shows. I have a hard time because people just keep calling her first guild master. So she shows back up, and she tells Laxus the only people who can know about the Lumen History is the guild masters. And then they talk about the mistakes of like Hades, or her choosing Hades, and how Makarov has had to hold it on for so long, and that all this stuff. And then she starts to cry because she's so sad she made like a bad decision. And then Makarov's like, Laxus, comfort her right out. He's like, no, you comfort her, you crazy old man. Later on, Fairy Tail's feeling great. So they're like throwing a huge party, and people are like, please do not destroy this inn. Everyone's congratulating Urza and Kana and everything. And meanwhile, someone's like, hey, where's Everclear? Something like that. The fairy lady. I know they're all fairy ladies, but she's with Elfman, who's all steel, beat up stuff, and everyone's like healed up and doing well, except Elfman, who's still like recovering. And then he wakes up, and Everclear. Anyway, whatever her name is. She's just like sleeping next to him because clearly they have like a thing and they're gonna bone at some point, which is great. And then Natsu, back down at the party, Natsu is playing this crazy game, barrel surfing, and so he does it, and then Gray does it, and then Urza does it, and Lucy's laughing, and everyone's having like a grand old time, and Juvia's like, I can remember it all just by closing my eyes, Luchan. Right? She's writing all these stories. Them all shouting and singing, eating, dancing. The third night was so filled with joy. Meanwhile, Sting can't sleep. And Lecter, his little cat's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm going to fight Natsu tomorrow. I'm so excited. I've been prepping for this for 7 years. And then we see Rogue, and he looks concerned about stuff. Kagura looks super sad. She's like crying in the shower. We see something strange with the pumpkin-headed guy, and then we see like everybody else. And then we see Yukino, who is the other summoning lady that was in Sabretooth but then got kind of kicked out. She's like reporting for duty as a sergeant for the guard. And then the guard captain looks super pleased with himself because now he's got a celestial wizard, right? And that's day 3. And in day 7, the whole world's going to like change or something, right? So day 4 shows up, and the first event is this crazy event where all these people have to go into like, it's like Blitzball from Final Fantasy X, but it's also sumo wrestling. So then all these people have to go, all the wizards have to go in there, and they have to like, whoever's the last man standing wins. But then there's like a 5-minute timer at the very end, and if the last 2 are there, if so, after there's only 2 people left, there's a 5-minute timer, and if one of them gets knocked out during that 5-minute timer, they end up being in last place. And so, of course, everyone battling in this is a hot babe except for Quattro Cerebros, who has no hot babes. So we got Sharia, we get Jenny, we get Leslie, who's like the big beefy lady. We get Juvia, we get Minerva, and we get Lucy. Oh, the Lucy, that's so good. And so we begin, and Lucy summons Aquarius, and then her and Juvia just like start fighting because rivals in love. And Lucy's like, we're not rivals in love, you dummy. And then Jenny, I think, knocks out the Quattro Cerebus man and blasts him completely out. And then Aquarius is like, I got a day, adios. And so the Juvia has no one fighting against her, essentially to knock Lucy out. But then Lucy summons. Who does she summon? She summons Virgo and Aries. And so the maid and the hot ram lady. And so they're in swimming suits in there too. And everyone's like, woo, yeah, baby. So good. And they save her from getting knocked out. And then Juvia knocks like everybody else out except Minerva and Lucy, who gets saved by her celestial spirits. And then Juvia's like celebrating, but doesn't realize that she is also outside. And everyone's like, that dummy. But that just leaves Lucy and Minerva as the last 2. And it's like, oh, okay, so the 5-minute timer starts now. So Lucy's like, no matter what, I'm not going to leave. And then Minerva starts just like blasting at Lucy with like super hot fire. And Lucy's about to fight back, but then Minerva steals her keys. And Lucy's like, ruh-roh. And so she keeps almost like getting knocked out, but then she gets knocked back in and she's fighting real hard and all this stuff. And then we find out that Minerva is essentially preventing Lucy from leaving so that she can just beat up on her more and treat her poorly. And so she's doing that. And she does like a back kick and she's like beating the crap out of Lucy. Like, it looks like she's going to like do some serious damage. And then the guard captain, who's like, no, we need that celestial wizard, is like, I call a stop to this match immediately. And then the pumpkin guy's like, the match is called. And Lucy looks like real beat up, like real bad. Like she's like bleeding out of her mouth and she's all bruised up. And Minerva's like so pleased with herself. And poor Lucy, man. She hasn't got a break this whole tournament, man. It's like, I feel real bad. And then they have to call like the emergency medics because she's so beat up she could possibly die, right? And then Natsu and Gray are like super pissed off. And that's where volume 34 wraps up. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys in 2 weeks to follow up on this. Okay, bye.